Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 12th of March, comes to you from London. And the dollar just falling back a little bit this morning, having risen strongly at the end of last week. We're just seeing that falling away. So we're still bearish in the medium and long-term charts, but short-term we are still bullish, although we are just falling away a little bit, and we're down this morning. Euro is consequently up by 1/5% against the dollar, but again, not yet through the cloud, so we need to see that move as well. Looking at the Japanese yen, we see the dollar again much the same picture here as the dollar index, just stronger, but just coming off the top a little bit. So we still have these downside targets hanging over us. Sterling is up against the dollar this morning, looking a little bit stronger short term. Prices just coming back out of the cloud. And against the euro, sterling is actually also looking bullish in the short term, but really has been very much a sideways picture for the last several months. Looking against the Swiss franc, we see here sterling just gradually climbing as well. And against the Australian dollar, just actually falling away. Australian dollar strengthening there. Taking a look at Bitcoin, fell back below the $10,000 level last week, but interestingly this morning, remembering that Bitcoin is 24-hour traded 7 days a week, this morning we're seeing Bitcoin coming back up through the cloud, so looking pretty good short term again, but medium term finding resistance there. Interestingly, we're testing cloud support there, so we'll have to see what. But 10,486 is the level, about 10% upside on the short term chart, so let's see if that happens. Looking at the US market, it rose on Friday, and that's really putting the recovery back in train. We're seeing here the fact that we're making a high that's higher than that high that we saw in February, not yet higher than the January high, but this is consistent with what we'd expect to see in recovery, bullish on all three time frames on these charts. Looking at the Nasdaq 100, much the same picture. We see here that it's really actually broken to a new high on the 100, so that is really signs that tech is driving this recovery. So looking strong again, markets looking like they're going to make a full recovery. And of course, we needed this sell-off to give us a new thrust to the upside. And if we look at that, we see that on the Nasdaq, we have about 10% upside, so quite key. 18% on the medium term chart. So at least we now have new targets. And you remember at the start of the year, my concern was that we didn't have upside targets. Now we do have these upside targets. And on the Dow, we've got targets of 9, 10, 14%. So that's looking strong as well. Not making new highs the same as the Nasdaq, and not higher than the high we saw in February. So the large caps just not yet driving the price. The Russell 2000 also looking strong, not yet making new highs. So it's really been driven by tech at the moment. So that's the really big key there. And if we take a look at the Nasdaq E-Mini, we see here that that's also looking strong, breaking to new highs as well. FTSE 100 is moving higher this morning, back above the cloud on the short-term chart, so that's looking good. And the FTSE 250 also moving higher as well, back above the cloud very strongly, and looking stronger than the 100 index recovery. Still medium-term bearish, so we've got work to do. And looking at the DAX, much the same, through on the cloud on the short-term chart, but still not quite making higher highs. So more work to do on European markets generally. Looking at the CAC, much the same picture, of course. Tokyo, if we're looking at the Nikkei 400, we're seeing here just starting to come through the cloud, but medium term still bearish. The Hang Seng has actually looked like the strongest index through all of this. It was up nearly 2% overnight, so looking very strong there. And the Chinese index, the local market in Shanghai, also moving back above the cloud on the short term. The medium term still has work to do. And the Sensex up very strongly overnight as well. Not quite bullish yet on the short term chart, but looking good. And on the S&P Australian index, just struggling to get through on that short-term chart. We have really been in the doldrums the last 6 months. Taking a look at Brent crude, we see Brent is higher this morning, well, lower this morning, but above the cloud. So we are just in this really sideways range between $63 and $66, and we're just stuck in that range at the moment, waiting for a break. The same with WTI, just starting to head lower this morning, but still just holding on above the cloud. US nat gas sitting at $2.7 $2.74. Just struggling a bit short term as well. Taking a look at gold, we see here the gold is actually down this morning, only very slightly, but is still bearish below the cloud, so it just hasn't managed to get back above that level. And the same with silver. US 10-year yields back at 2.9%. Those job numbers last week pushing that higher. And tech stocks, as we said, the Nasdaq driving moves forward. We see here Apple not quite making a new high, just hitting that resistance level. Amazon well and truly smashing it and going right to new all-time highs. So we're really seeing that move playing out positively. And Amazon, we're really just seeing that strength kicking in. And if we look at the trend there, Alphabet just pushing higher to a new higher high, but not a new high. So good, but still not quite making new all-time highs the way we're seeing with Amazon. Facebook actually managing to get back above this 180 level, back at 185, so looking stronger there, bouncing off the cloud. And Microsoft also made a new high on Friday, so we see here in the charts that's looking really good. So Microsoft looking strong there as well. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.